Hey everyone, and welcome to another Explainer. If you're a focused learner who loves digging into the invisible mechanics of our everyday world, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today we're looking at something we all totally take for granted, at least until the exact second it stops working. Yep, we're talking about our vehicle's electrical systems. We're going to explore exactly why car batteries seem to fail when we least expect them to, the invisible chemistry actively working against your engine, and why the quick fixes we've relied on for decades might actually destroy a modern car.
I mean, we've all been there, right? Picture this. You're rushing out the door. Maybe you're a young professional merging onto Interstate 35 for a massive morning meeting. Or maybe you're a parent frantically managing the school run down FM 3009. You jump in the car, you turn the key or push the ignition button, and instead of that reassuring roar of your engine, you get a sudden, weak click. And then, total silence. It's this visceral sinking feeling of panic, isn't it? Your day just instantly comes to a grinding halt. But why does this happen? And more importantly, what's silently happening under the hood in the months leading up to that dreaded click?
Okay, let's just dive right into our roadmap for today. First, warning signs of battery failure. 2, how heat destroys your battery. 3, the dangers of DIY jumpstarts. 4, cascading failures and hazards. And 5, maintenance and professional rescue.
Starting off with part 1, warning signs of battery failure. Listening to your vehicle's early cries for help.
Here's the truth. Batteries rarely just die completely out of the blue. Modern vehicles actually actively communicate electrical decay. You just have to know what to look for. Now, the absolute most common indicator is a slow engine crank. When your engine sounds sluggish or takes just a split second longer to catch, it's because the battery is severely lacking the cold cranking amps needed to quickly spin that starter motor. But check out these electrical anomalies too. Dimming headlights when you're just idling at a stoplight, power windows rolling up just a bit too slowly, or even an erratic infotainment system on your dash. These all mean your battery is really struggling to maintain proper voltage. And then, of course, there are the physical signs under the hood. Terminal corrosion, a swollen battery case, or a really distinct sulfur smell. Honestly, if you smell sulfur or see a swollen case, that is a massive red flag. It points to a severe internal chemical breakdown. Let's move on to Section 2, how heat destroys your battery. The invisible villain of South Texas. So we really need to talk about the weather here. There's this persistent myth out there that freezing winter temperatures are the ultimate killer of car batteries. But if you actually look at the data from regions like South Texas, intense prolonged summer heat is actually far more destructive to lead-acid battery chemistry. What's really fascinating is the actual chemical process happening inside that little plastic box in your engine bay. It's known as sulfation. Basically, high ambient temperatures cause the internal fluid in a standard car battery to evaporate at a highly accelerated rate. When that fluid evaporates, it exposes the internal lead plates to the air. This exposure leads straight to sulfation, which crystallizes the plates and permanently reduces the battery's capacity to hold a charge. Heat also accelerates internal corrosion, literally breaking down the internal grid structure that generates your power. It is an invisible decay happening every single hot summer day.
Which brings us to this honestly shocking number, 2 to 3. That is the meager number of years a standard battery typically lasts in the extreme summer temperatures of South Texas. Now, if you live in a milder climate, you might expect a standard battery to give you a good 4 to 5 years of life. But in high heat environments, that accelerated fluid evaporation and chemical degradation literally cuts that lifespan almost in half. So if your battery is 3 years old in a hot climate, you are pretty much living on borrowed time.
So what's the fix? How do we combat this? Well, you can proactively upgrade your equipment. Standard lead-acid batteries are super prone to that rapid fluid evaporation we just went over. But absorbent glass mat, or AGM batteries, are built completely differently. They're actually sealed units. And because they're sealed, they offer significantly better heat resistance and are far less prone to fluid evaporation. Even in punishing heat, an AGM battery can bump your lifespan back up to roughly 4 to 5 years, depending on your driving habits.
Let's transition into Section 3, the dangers of DIY jumpstarts. Why a quick fix can lead to financial ruin.
Okay, so we're shifting gears from chemistry to the harsh reality of being on the side of the road. When your vehicle fails to start, human instinct just kicks right in. The natural urge is to dig out a pair of dusty jumper cables, the ones that have probably been sitting in your trunk since 2008, and ask a passing driver or a neighbor for a jump start. But I want to pose this really critical question to you. Is it actually safe to jumpstart modern cars with standard cables? I want you to think about the technology inside the vehicle you drive today compared to a car from 20 years ago. The answer to this question is a resounding, definitive no.
So, the crucial point here is understanding the catastrophic consequences of using those old-school jumper cables. Modern vehicles, whether they're cars, trucks, or SUVs, are essentially rolling computer networks. They're absolutely packed with highly sensitive engine control units, or ECUs. A power surge from an incorrectly attached set of jumper cables can fry these incredibly expensive computer modules in literally a fraction of a second. If you accidentally cross the positive and negative cables, you risk blowing vital fuses, causing permanent alternator damage, or worst-case scenario, triggering a literal battery explosion. This is exactly why professionals don't even use standard cables anymore. Trained technicians will show up with the diagnostic tools and surge-protected jump boxes that deliver the exact, precise amount of required power without putting your vehicle's onboard computers at risk.
And that brings us to Section 4, Cascading Failures and Hazards, when a dead battery is just the beginning. Because, let's face it, breakdowns never happen in a vacuum, do they? A dead battery rarely happens in a convenient, well-lit, empty driveway. No, they happen on the shoulder of a high-speed road or deep in a busy parking lot. And even worse, a total loss of electrical power frequently triggers a frustrating domino effect of secondary roadside complications. Here's one of the absolute worst: the lockout. When your battery voltage drops below a certain threshold, the electronic locking mechanisms completely shut down. Imagine closing your door to pop the hood and your keys are still inside. Because the security system completely lost power, your electronic key fob loses synchronization, and suddenly you are completely locked out of a dead vehicle. To get back in safely without just shattering a window or completely ruining the weather stripping, you need a skilled technician equipped with specialized pneumatic wedges and long-reach tools. So, what started as a simple dead battery just turned into a complex rescue operation.
And this brilliantly illustrates how different compound emergencies require highly specific professional equipment. Take a look here. A minor intersection collision involving a sedan, that requires a standard flatbed tow truck to safely clear traffic and protect the drivetrain. But if a heavy SUV goes down an embankment, you're going to need a wrecker with a hydraulic winch for the complex rigging. Commercial box trucks require medium-duty wreckers for heavy chassis management, while a massive multi-car highway pileup demands an entire fleet of sweepers and flatbeds. Just like jumping a battery requires precision tools, recovering a disabled vehicle safely relies on matching the exact right equipment to the specific scenario. You just cannot use a one-size-fits-all approach on the roadside.
Finally, let's head into Section 5, Maintenance and Professional Rescue, Empowering Yourself Against the Breakdown.
So we've talked about the dangers, the brutal heat, and all the hazards. Now let's talk about empowering yourself against the breakdown with some actual actionable solutions. Whether you manage a family sedan, a heavy-duty pickup, or even a whole fleet of utility vans for a small business, there are steps you can take starting today. First things first, we have to recognize a silent threat called parasitic drain. If you have a seasonal RV, maybe a teenager's older car, or a backup work truck that just sits idle for weeks at a time, it is constantly losing power. Even with the ignition completely off, internal clocks, security alarms, and radio presets are drawing a continuous tiny amount of power. Over several weeks, this parasitic draw will just completely flatten the battery, opening the door for that really destructive sulfation process we learned about earlier to fully take hold.
So here is how this builds into a really concrete preventative maintenance routine. Step 1, do a quick visual inspection every single time you get an oil change. Step 2, if you see any white or blue acidic buildup around the battery posts, just clean it off. You can use a wire brush and a super simple mix of baking soda and water. Step 3, make sure those battery hold-down brackets are actually tight. A loose battery vibrates while you drive, which literally physically shatters the internal lead plates over time. And step 4, for those idle vehicles we just talked about, use a smart trickle charger to maintain optimal voltage and constantly fight off that parasitic drain. But you know, even with the most meticulous care in the world, we have to acknowledge reality. Routine maintenance absolutely limits the frequency of breakdowns, but mechanical parts do eventually fail under the sheer stress of daily driving and harsh weather. Heat, vibration, and time will eventually win the battle, and that is exactly why establishing a relationship with a trusted 24/7 professional towing provider is your ultimate safety net. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to really consider regarding your own roadside readiness. If your car went totally silent tomorrow morning on the way to work, and you were suddenly locked out on a busy shoulder, do you know exactly who to call to save your engine's computers from a catastrophic power surge? Don't wait for the breakdown to figure out your backup plan. Respect the chemistry under the hood, keep those batteries well maintained, and always leave the jump starts and rescues to the professionals. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.